All right, we're live. Texans tie the Colts 20-20. Thank you very much for joining. This is kind of it's the first time I've gone live on here. We've put out a couple of videos. I'm going to do the basic bitch. Please subscribe below if you do not mind. Going to have Mike Meltser coming on. Obviously, kind of a weird feeling that the Texans tied. It's a better result then they've gotten 13, 23, they've lost 12 games and they've lost, what did they go last year? 4-13. So it's a better result than 25 games the last couple of years, but a lot of people are disappointed in the tie, specifically the decision by Lovie Smith to punt. I won't bury the lead. I had no problem with Lovie Smith punting. As a matter of fact, in the moment, I said he should punt. Afterwards, I think he punted. I believe that the Tennessee Titans are about to lose, so you're tied for first place in the division. We've seen Frank Reich. We go back to 2018 when Frank Reich went forward on 4th and 4 in overtime. I thought that was a dumb decision, and Lovie Smith basically didn't repeat that. So I had no issue with it. I'm going to bring on Mike Meltser right now. He's going to join me for most of these post-game shows. Meltz, I had no issue with it. Everybody says you play to win. Did you, watching that game, what made you think the Texans were going to convert a 4th and 4? And furthermore, watching that game, what made you think that they were going to be able to stop the Colts from gaining about 10 or 15 yards and getting another look at a field goal? So as far as playing to win, like this hardo play to win mindset, I don't understand it. I had no problem with Lovie Smith punting. I thought it was the right decision. Look, the game got away from him, but I had no issue with the punt.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the punt. It was a 4th and 3, technically, not 4th and 4. But your question about Landry, did I have any faith in them to actually convert? No, hell no. After whatever that random player for Indianapolis, whatever his name is, Sam, who knocked out the ball from Davis Mills. Once they lost that football, the game obviously turned. That was the play that single-handedly turned the momentum. If you look at basically every offensive possession after that, most notably the first possession of overtime, they were a disaster. They couldn't set up right. They had false starts. They had illegal shifts. I mean, they couldn't get basic plays off. They allowed a sack with a 3-man rush with the secondary basically playing in the woodlands. Like, they couldn't do anything. So I think where people are coming from is not so much like the specific acute decision about in this particular game. I think people are more saying like, hey, this team's going through a rebuild. What's the difference if you lose the game? Shouldn't Lovie just go for it?
I hate that. What do you mean what's the difference if you lose the game? The difference is if you lose the game is we're not talking about, and I don't have the Tennessee score in front of me, but we're talking about a team that
Tennessee just lost. Tennessee just lost.
So we're talking about what's the difference in losing? The difference in losing is that instead of being tied for first in the division, you're a game back, and you're a game back of the best teams. They had every opportunity to win that game.
They had every opportunity to win the game. And I think that Lovie, ultimately, when you look at it, they were up 20-3, obviously. And you're in a situation where I think Lovie just wanted to give his guys something. And he felt like the best chance to avoid the loss in that circumstance was punting. To me, the bigger story is more about the 3rd and 1, because you're just in a really tough spot on that 4th and 3. Like, your protection's not holding up. I'm not so sure that Davis Mills is all that confident in that situation. And once you're back to the 4th and 3, like, you asked the right question. Like, what am I confident in that spot?
My biggest problem with the whole situation and the whole scenario is it's not even it goes beyond the third down call. It goes to 2nd down. When it's 2nd down and 1 and you throw on 2nd down and 1, you should know immediately that you're going to be running on 3rd down. If that's what you're going to do. My issue was the fact that they had to call a timeout to run the ball with Rex Burkhead. So even if they would have converted on that run, you still would have had 1 timeout and not 2, and you would have been shuffling anyways. That was my problem. I thought it was just a lack of organization as a whole, that they didn't have that play ready, and then they had to call a timeout, and then they decided to run the ball with Rex Burkhead. I don't understand how they did not have that play ready. And then you come out in heavy. Like, What
Yes.
do you need the extra lineman? Can you spread it out a little bit? I don't understand coming out in heavy, and I don't understand how they didn't have a play ready on that. That's my issue. But as far as punting, I thought that was a no-brainer. Like, I thought that was a no-brainer. I don't understand this, like, don't play to lose. In Lopez, shout out to the OG John Lopez. You hear me with him Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. You know, Brian Dable, I guess, just decided to go for 2 in the win, and Saquon Barkley made a miraculous play, and he's like, Brian Dable versus Lovie Smith. Those aren't the same effing decisions. Come on, man.
No.
Like, you're going for 2 to win is not the same thing as 3rd and 3 or 4th and 3, 4th and 4, whatever we're talking about, and deciding to punt. That's not the same thing. So I had no issue with it. I think it was a smart play. I didn't think they were going to convert a 3rd down. Matter of fact, chances are Davis Mills goes back and he ends up getting sacked and fumbles, and Indy scoops it in with the way that they were blocking at that point. So I had no problem with it. The end of that game was on drugs as a whole. I think a tie was perfect. I also wanted a tie because neither one of these teams deserved to win. Neither one of these teams deserved to win. So of all times, this was the perfect time. This was the perfect time for a tie to happen.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Indianapolis, like, you have the missed field goal on, like, let's be honest. We all thought the game was over at that point because the Texans go 3 and out. It's a complete catastrophe. They go down the field, and you know, they actually, I'm sure there are probably people in Indianapolis tomorrow that are going to be dissecting that series of plays where they get down the field and they seem to kind of settle for the field goal attempt by Blankenship. Like, Matt Ryan was actually sacked for a 5-yard loss on the play before that missed field goal. But I think that's right. I don't think either team truly deserved to win. For what it's worth on that decision, Seth Walder said their 4th down model, I forget who he works for, but they narrowly preferred punt over go in that situation. I think you and I are on the same page. To me, it's more about the sequence. It's more about the 2nd and 3rd and 1. To me, like, especially, it's not a 4th and 3 in a vacuum. It's not like, hey, you're randomly on the middle of the field and it's 4th and 3. You have to think about the 2nd and 1, the 3rd and 1. Like, you didn't just gain 7 yards to get to that 4th and 3. You lost 2 yards to get to that 4th and 3, which is going to impact the way that you're going to be thinking about that 4th down decision. I think that goes into it.
Just the lack of organization was my biggest issue. The next part of the question, our next question on the Locker Room Postgame Show, subscribe on YouTube. I think it's like down there somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. But yeah, just subscribe, and we'll be doing this. I'll be doing this daily, and this will be postgame, usually me and Melts. Too much Rex. Is there too much Rex Burkhead for your liking? All right, go ahead. Don't even bury the lead.
Well, let's look at this. I mean, 14 carries for 40 yards. He was targeted 8 times.
He had 19 touches. 19 touches.
Yeah. So he was a primary, like, target in the game 22 times. That just seems like a whole heck of a lot. And, like, I'll put it this way. If it keeps going like this, and I don't mind the idea that Rex Burkhead is, like, here for the culture. They gave him a new deal. He finished last year strong, and they like him as a 3rd down back. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I can kind of live with that. But if Rex Burkhead is used as heavily today, moving forward the rest of the year, they will be better off in the way Mike Lombardi talks about it if Rex Burkhead gets injured. Seriously, they will be better off as a football team if he gets hurt. Now, I realize Rex Burkhead is like an actual human being, so I'm not rooting for injury. But the reason I cite Lombardi is, like, he's a longtime NFL executive, and he talked about how with some of the teams he ran, he felt like we're a couple of injuries away from being a good football team. Meaning, like, the coaches are playing the wrong guys. And I don't mind Rex Burkhead as a 3rd down running back, but when he's getting 14 carries,
not 3rd and short. Like, that's the thing. Like, you're talking about, like, there. You say, when I was talking to you after the game, you said there aren't many teams that are going to use Rex Burkhead on 1st and 2nd down.
Yes,
I agree with you. But I think there's even fewer that will use him on 3rd and short.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he was in there on – there was one critical –
He was also there, though, when they blew it up, though. He was also there when they blew it up.
Yes. I want to say after the flea flicker they hit in the game, they ran the next 2 plays where Rex Burkhead runs. Like, I don't think Rex Burkhead is in on 1st or 2nd down on any team in the NFL. I think he's a 3rd down back for probably less than half of the teams in the NFL. So to have that amount of, you know, that amount of usage, so I guess borrow a basketball term, I just think it's way too much. To me, I understand that like the coaches know more than we do, and there are things that we don't know. But like we're all watching the same football games, and I don't know how great Dameon Pierce is at pass protection, but like the pass protection was a mess anyway late in that game. And again, that 3rd and 1, how can your best play, like whatever Rex Burkhead is good at, it's not a power situation with Charlie Heck reporting as eligible on that play. I am stunned that they called a timeout and they said, this is our best play. Like, how does that happen? How is that the best play coming out of a timeout? It's not like they rushed it. They had time to think about that.
See, I've compared Dameon Pierce to Marion Barber. Like everyone's trying to figure out, like, what is he like? They're the same height. They're the same weight. They have the same type of energy. And I don't think Dameon Pierce is a guy who can carry the ball 25 times. Like the Marion Barber was never a guy that you carried 25 times. Yeah. When Dameon Pierce was on the sidelines, but the thing that Marion Barber did really well was he finished off games. When the Cowboys needed him to finish off games, he finished off games. And when Dameon Pierce was on the sidelines, and Rex Burkhead was in there when they took the 23 lead. Like they used him for a large portion of that game. I just assumed they were saving Dameon Pierce so that at the end of the game he could be their closer. So when you're up 14 points, you get Dameon Pierce to move the chains a couple of times, and that's ball game. That's what I thought they were going to do. They didn't do that. They still went with Rex Burkhead, and that's my issue. Dameon Pierce has never been a guy who's been able to carry the ball a lot, unless he did in high school. He's had 15 carries twice. So maybe that's not how he's built, but I do think he's built for when you have a 14-point lead and you want to try to move the chains to where a couple of first downs win the game for you. It seems like Marion Barber, he's the kind of guy that you want to be in that situation. And for sure on 3rd and short, like it shouldn't even be that you can, like all these coaches that tell you watch the tape and stuff like that, they do see stuff when it comes to pass protection and all this other stuff that we don't even try to see. And we take people that say it and we take their word for it. But on 3rd and 1, where you're just handing the running back the ball and you need him to fall forward for a few yards or a yard or a foot, Dameon Pierce is better than Rex Burkhead. There's no question about it.
I'm looking at, so Pro Football Focus, Landry, has like a bunch of like pie charts, and they show like who is in Rex or Dameon Pierce depending on different situations. So think about this. We've been going through these numbers. On all of the plays, there were 70 plays they ran. Rex Burkhead was in on 50 plays. Dameon Pierce was in for 20 of the plays. 50 versus 20. 8 third downs. Burkhead was in on all 8 third downs. 2-minute drill. They ran 13 such plays. The only running back on the field for those situations was Rex Burkhead. Like, I mean, they featured Burkhead at the expense of Dameon Pierce. Like, Rex Burkhead, whatever he is at his best, is going to be used as a changeup. Like anybody knows that. Rex Burkhead's dad and his family know that. He can't be the feature guy on an NFL team in 2022. I mean, he was passable enough to be like a feature back in college, not at this level and not this deep into his career.
Last year was the first time he's ever led a team in rushing at the NFL level. Like, and I said that running back's been a sensitive, thing for me with the way this team has handled running backs. Let's pretend that Rex Burkhead is better than Dameon Pierce, and I don't think he is. I don't think you think he is. That's a problem. Like if Rex Burkhead is your best running back, that's a problem. That's an issue. You're not going to overcome that. So that's a massive problem. So the answer, as far as too much Rex, I think we both agree on that. What about Davis Mills? Davis Mills performance, 24 of 37, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Should have been 3 touchdowns because Pep Hamilton, he dialed up a touchdown play, that flea flicker to open up the third quarter. It was a little bit underthrown to Brandon Cooks. I didn't think Mills was very good today. I thought he was okay. I thought there were some good throws, but I didn't think Davis Mills was great today. And that underthrow of Brandon Cooks, I mean, that could have really, really changed things.
I thought he was okay as well. I'd probably give him somewhere between like a 4 to 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Davis Mills, like the more I watch him, I feel like he's sort of a rhythm player. Like when he'll have like halves that are awful and then halves that are really, really strong. And you're like, hey, you might have something here. I thought the highlights would be the throws to OJ Howard in the red zone. I thought he was decisive. He made quick throws. That's what you have to do down there. The negative is that once the EJ Speed, sack fumble happens, I thought Davis Mills really did barely anything to help out the offense between the pass protection issues and just making some sort of play to be able to get the offense going. Like, I mean, I'm watching these games today, like all the games happening, and when it comes down to the very end of it, you kind of feel like the question is, do you have a quarterback or do you not have a quarterback? And I thought the performance was okay. I don't think it was terrible. I don't think the skill positions around him are great. And I also think that Indianapolis's defense will be pretty good this season, if not even better than that. I was disappointed that he couldn't bounce back in the second half after that speed sack fumble, and he couldn't get anything much going after that. That was my disappointment.
Yeah, my disappointment was really just the miss to Cooks. Seemed like he was kind of all over the place. There were a couple of times where a guy didn't even have a chance to catch the rock. That one play where Moore caught it, I actually thought that could have been an interception. I thought he was trying to throw it to Brevin Jordan.
Well, he was trying to throw it to Brevin Jordan. It could have been picked off, so he got lucky on that one. You're right.
Yeah, and then he threw it behind Cooks for whatever reason at the end of regulation. That would have been game.
Yes.
The interception where I don't know if he thought Cooks was going to break in or whatever. That could have been game. It was just really overall just kind of a wacky game. Nobody really deserved to win. If you just go through like Indianapolis, they have to be saying, man, we played so bad.
Yes.
And on any other Sunday, they would have lost. Like they dropped 2 touchdowns in the end zone.
Yep.
They, for some reason, decided to run Wildcat with Naheem Hines up the middle instead of just giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor. They missed a field goal. They kicked the ball out of bounds 2 times. They fumbled a punt that they're fortunate that guy was there. Or that would have been one of the bigger blunders in a while.
That would have ended the game.
So I mean, Indianapolis, like they gave you every opportunity, but with all that, with all the stuff that we go through with how Indianapolis had costly mistakes, the Texans had the most costly mistake. Like when you're up 14 points, even if you go 3 and out and you kill 2 minutes, you probably win that game. So I don't know what happened there. Tunsil clearly blocked the wrong guy. I don't know if that's a communication thing or what, but Texans aren't a good enough football team to be able to afford that type of mistake. You can't give them a 20-yard field. You can't turn the ball over, and you can't take off the clock. Like even if the Texans just go 3 and out there, they win the game. And they just found a way to give Indianapolis an opportunity to cut it to 7, and then Indianapolis scored at the end of the game. And then I'm really surprised that Indianapolis really didn't end it in regulation. That was the other mistake, maybe the most costly. Jonathan Taylor runs out of bounds a yard before the line to gain on 3rd down, and all he could have. Cut up field. They had Texans were stopping them, because this is another thing, and this might be like a long-term thing, and we'll touch on the Broncos game in a sec. But the other thing about that is Kamu Grugier-Hill, they were looking for him, man. Oh, yeah. There was a time where they put Hines in the slot. Kamu was like fixing his helmet or something like that, and like grabbing his pads or whatever, and Matt Ryan didn't look anywhere else. And then they did the same thing when Kamu Grugier-Hill was lined up on Mo Alley Cox. Like they were sniffing out Kamu Grugier-Hill. I think Kamu Grugier, I don't even know if he's going to play next week. He might, but that guy's banged up. Like I talked to him in the locker room afterwards. He is very, very banged up. And teams are going to look at this tape and they're going to realize when that guy's out there, when 51's out there, we got to get some running backs. We got to get some tight ends. We got to get this guy in coverage, because other teams aren't like the Texans. They got running backs who can actually like line up and run routes and be like kind of matchup problems. They're going to sniff out 51, especially after this game. It is going to be a problem. Other than that, he played fine. He was pretty good against the run. He made a couple of plays, but trust me, coaches are going to look at this tape and they're going to look for 51. That was a problem. He was sniffing that out.
I think that's right. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks they face, and it kind of goes up and down every single week. Like they'll face Russell Wilson next week, then Justin Fields, then Herbert, then Trevor Lawrence. They're 0-1. Derek Carr, Tannehill, Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones. So they'll face some very good quarterbacks, but it's not. I don't think they face certainly a murderer's row of quarterbacks. So they might be able to kind of mitigate that. I was looking at the drive summaries after the fumble that was forced by Speed, and this is what the Texans did. 5 plays, punt. 3 plays punt, 3 plays in overtime minus 16 yards, and then 5 plays, and then obviously punted away. So
go for it on 4th and 3. It's just a given they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought it's not just that they went, 3 and out, 5 and out, 4 and out. It seemed, Landry, like the offense got spooked after that play. You could kind of tell with the offensive line's body language, with the way the huddle was operating.
Titus Howard was having a really hard time after that.
Yeah,
and he wasn't even really a part of the play.
The illegal shifts, the false starts, it was just it was a super sloppy operation after that.
I also kind of feel like the Colts smelled blood too. I think it might be a combination of both.
Yeah, I think so too.
They smelled a little bit of blood.
To the point about like who deserves to win, who's going to feel a certain way.
Neither team.
Box scores can be misleading at times. Total yards, though, is a thing. And Indianapolis had 517 total yards of offense. The Texans had 299. I'm sure if you're Indianapolis, you're looking at this game and you're thinking, yes, we were down 20-3 and we should have won the game based on the missed field goal in overtime. But if not for 2 plays, the fourth and goal turnover on downs, and then that ridiculous Matt Ryan interception to Jerry Hughes, like Indianapolis at minimum is probably up 9-0 or maybe higher than that, maybe a better point total. Those were the 2 plays I thought that really swung the first half of the game and made it seem kind of like Jacksonville week 1 last year.
Next question that we have, Pep Hamilton's debut as offensive coordinator. I thought Pep looked pretty good. I mean, he came out, he did some interesting shifting. There were actually a couple of drops on the first, a couple of 3rd down drops on the first 2 possessions. Cooks kind of failed to catch it. I don't know if there was a little bit too much on it, not enough touch for Mills. And then Conley, it was low. You could say it was a low throw. Maybe Conley probably should have caught that, but
that was a low throw.
Yeah, it was low. But Chris Conley doesn't get any benefit of the doubt around here. But
not a strong receiver, but that throw's got to be higher.
I didn't have too much of an issue with Pep Hamilton's play calling, which I guess is an improvement from what I'm used to, because I'm used to the Bill O'Brien, Tim Kelly, where they're just not really getting the job done. But my problem is it's easy to script. I don't want to say easy, but you can script out like a game plan early on, and you can script out, a flea flicker at the start of the 3rd quarter. But when it's 2nd and 1 and you throw the ball and then you don't have a play ready on 3rd down, and then there's a timeout and you have a 3-minute discussion about what play you're going to run. Yep. And it ends up being a run up the middle with Rex Burkhead with Charlie Heck playing tight end. That's kind of a bad look. And that's really where you judge offensive coordinators. You don't necessarily judge offensive coordinators in how they come out at the very start, although it does matter. But those are the types of situations, especially with this football team and how low the margin of error is for this Texan squad, where Pep Hamilton's got to be better there. So overall, it was okay, but I don't think it's anything to like write home about or anything like that. But good. Decent start, I'll say. Decent start.
I'm not quite as high on it as you are, just because I look at the numbers and, they averaged 4.4 yards a play, couldn't cross the 300-yard barrier or marker as far as total yards. They got to get more out of the running game. I don't know if that is the offensive line or the scheme or a combination thereof. The passing game, they kind of did what you expected them to do, which they pepper Cooks with targets. You had some tight end usage, which was pretty effective. Other than that, other than the flea flicker and a couple of more throwaway type plays for Davis Mills, not a whole lot of deep shots down the field. That was a theme.
Who do you want them to take deep shots to?
Well, I'm just saying in general, I think you have to threaten NFL defenses down the field. Like even the sort of like old to anybody, Nico, Cooks, Chris Moore. I mean, these are the guys they have. I'm just saying from the standpoint that like you can get lucky and get pass interference penalties. I mean, that's a legitimate thing. Like you can get lucky and get yards that way, especially for an offense that's going to be as limited as this one is. I'm not sure on Pep Hamilton. I'm in wait and see mode.
No, I'm just saying that it didn't completely suck. Like I didn't leave like a Tim Kelly or Bill O'Brien situation and say it completely sucked. There was some, the discouraging thing is that on 2nd and 1, you're running the ball and are throwing the ball, and then you're running the ball on third down and have to call a timeout. That's the biggest problem I had with the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to see more. I want to see
a low bar. It's a low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar. I would have liked to have seen, like, okay, the Texans famously in 2020 and 2021 had the worst rushing attack in the NFL. Now, I don't know what, 77 yards on 28 carries is going to get you, but it's
going to be close.
Yeah, it's going to be close, if not at the bottom.
If you do that every Sunday, you might be going for a repeat. You have a chance to be down there.
Yeah, if they keep doing that every Sunday, we might have like the triple belt of worst rushing game every single week. So I say that not to like crush Pep Hamilton because it's early, it's week one. I hold Indianapolis' defense in high regard. I thought Gus Bradley did a pretty nice job overall today. But I want to see, I could see a scenario where they go to Denver next week and it's on the road and it basically looks like a calamity, like nothing happens for 4 quarters. So I'm kind of taking this on a week-to-week basis. There are things I liked. Brandon Cooks had a solid game. I loved seeing O.J. Howard with the 2 touchdowns in the red zone, but they couldn't make a play. They had, 3 or 4 possessions late in the game with an opportunity to make a play to put themselves in a position to win, and they did not come really close to making that play.
There are 5 teams that had less than 77 rushing yards this week.
That's a good sign. They're like ranked, 26th.
Pittsburgh, Miami, Baltimore, Carolina, and the Rams.
Yes. So there's hope. There is some hope based on the futility of other teams.
All right. You just mentioned the bright spots. O.J. Howard, that's a bright spot. I don't want to put too much into it, but I mean, he's in the last 3 years, he had 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns like 2.5 quarters into his Texans tenure. This was a good signing. This was a good opportunity. Davis Mills clearly trusts him. So I thought O.J. Howard was a bright spot. Jerry Hughes in the first half. Jerry Hughes looked incredible. He had the sack. He had the interception. Jerry Hughes looked great. I don't know how sustainable it is, though. Like, I don't like, can you rely on Jerry Hughes to play like that? Is O.J. Howard going to be there? As far as like sustained success, like when we talk about bright spots, I don't know if that is something that you can really rely on. Although it's hard to really knock anything that Jerry Hughes did. You're basically playing with house money with Jerry Hughes at this point. That was as good as you could expect him to play. Oh
yeah. I mean, a couple of quarterback hits, 2 sacks, the interception and tackle for a loss. I think so. In an ideal world, ideal football team, Jerry Hughes would be like your 3rd or 4th pass rusher. Here, he's number 1 or 2. You'd probably expect as you go along.
By the way, Ryan had all day too.
Yeah, he did. Although I thought he actually did a pretty nice job of maneuvering around the pocket late in the game. I thought he got a pretty good feel for
drop touchdown. He had like 6-7 seconds.
That one he did, yes. But I thought there were some times in the game where they were close and they just couldn't finish off the plays. But they need, put it this way, the way this team is constructed, they're going to need more from the pass rush and the defensive line than they got today. They had 2 sacks. I think those numbers are going to need to increase for them to win the way this team can realistically win.
Areas of concern. It's really kind of more the same. Running the football, the running back position. That's my biggest area of concern is running the ball. I don't know if Dameon Pierce is going to be one of those guys that they just don't trust. If it's going to be like a poor man's version of, Deontay Foreman back in the day or something like that. But it does concern me that they can't run the ball, and I'm also concerned about. And this is a concern that we had heading into the season, the wide receivers 2 down, which, by the way, Indianapolis has the same problem with Michael Pittman. Like they might have as much of a problem when it comes to wide receivers 2 down as the Texans do, because those guys played terrible today behind Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, obviously, he looked like a total baller, but the wide receivers 2 down, Nico Collins was MIA today. We heard all this chatter about Nico Collins and, Nico Collins has been staying after, and he was. But Nico Collins in this game, 2 receptions for 26 yards, 3 targets. That's not a number 2 receiver.
Yeah. I mean, coaches are always going to talk on Sundays about, like, I got to go back and watch the tape. And I think there's a lot of truth to it. Like, what was happening with Nico all day to where he had only 3 targets. You feel like, again, I know Mechie is out for, cancer treatment and such. If you look at the investments made draft pick wise into Nico Collins and John Mechie over the long term, one of those guys to me has to hit from a Nick Caserio standpoint. So I think that's something to watch. Like, can Nico get open on the outside against solid NFL corners? I mean, Chris Moore, I think we know the deal there. Like, if this was another NFL team, Chris Moore probably wouldn't be on the roster, let alone out there. So I think that's going to remain a concern.
I thought Steven Nelson played good.
Yep.
I thought Steven Nelson looked really good. He told me he thought he was great. He said great. He got offended when I said Michael Pittman was good. Little one-on-one on the post-game show with Sean and Clint. So Steven Nelson thought he played great. Stingley, it's just good to have him out there at this point. He hasn't played in a long time. So even like Deion Sanders, like any cornerback's going to go through like some sort of growing pains. Nothing really stuck out too much. Like I didn't even when Michael Pittman was making plays, like I didn't really look at those plays and say, oh, well, what the hell was he doing here? Or, he should like, it just kind of seemed like, they drew up a good play. Michael Pittman's a good player. He made a play. So I thought the secondary looked good. I thought Jalen Petrie looked good. There were a couple times where he was making plays close to the line of scrimmage. He had that one penalty, which by the way was the right call. Yeah. But nothing he could have done there. He got caught kind of in no man's land, but it was the right play. I thought Jalen Petrie looked good. Kurt Hinish really didn't look good going through the rookies. I mean, he looked okay. But other than that, I thought the secondary was good. I thought that Kamu Grugier-Hill had 14 tackles. I mean, he was all over the place. I'll be interested to see how he bounces back because I'm telling you, man, the dude's moving slow right now, like slow.
We thought he had basically died last year and was out for the season.
Yeah, well, that is true. He did basically have a funeral at NRG, and then he was right back on the field.
I think the big thing with Stingley is just getting him through these games healthy to make you feel confident about his health moving forward. Obviously, his signature play was the knockdown in the end zone on 3rd and goal, which was a play that those kind of plays can be game savers, and that shows you why he was the number 3 overall pick. Gained some receptions, but with that, like I need to kind of know, Landry, what the scheme of the defense is and what the philosophy, because he's kind of he's giving so much cushion that I don't exactly know what their strategy is, and I don't know if I should like blame his coverage or it
didn't even seem like it was weird because I found myself talking to the guys in the press box, and sometimes when I don't know, look, I'm not going to pretend to be an X's and O's guys. I think that stuff's boring as hell sometimes too. There's guys that you trust and whatnot, but there are a lot of times where it didn't even look like it looked like they were in man, but it didn't look like Stingley was supposed to be guarding him. Like it was almost like he had like his back. He had his back to him to where he was forcing him inside. He was lined up on him. The rest of the coverage looked like it was man, but then they just basically let Michael Pittman run inside. I couldn't really tell what exactly was going on there.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure.
The stadium view was even stranger. Like it was really strange. Like I'm intrigued when people watch the all 22 because it almost seemed like it was man, then it didn't seem like it was man, then it seemed like the corner was playing zone, and it was both of them doing it. So I don't know what exactly they were trying to do, what they were seeing.
The one play I would have loved to have had with Petrie is late in the game.
The interception.
Yeah, the interception. Like that would have been really the cherry on top, because if he makes that play.
But that whole end of that game was on crack.
Yeah, it was.
That whole end of the game was on crack. You had Taylor run out of bounds. You had 2 kicks out of bounds. You had the punt return fumble. You had the dropped interception. You had. I mean the whole end of that game was just completely on crack.
Yeah, I know that you were at
drugs.
I know you were at the game, so you couldn't see some of the other wackiness, but like. The Steelers-Bengals game was even crazier in their overtime. Like Cleveland won on basically a walk-off kick. New Orleans came back and won. So there was a lot of craziness in the late, early window of these, noon Central Time games. There was a lot of wacky stuff. I mean, like I would say overall, I feel okay. I feel okay because, and it's weird because you saw some flashes. I think this organization is in a much better spot than they were a year ago. At the same time,
no doubt.
The draft pick part of me feels like, man, if you're not going to win the game, then shouldn't you have the benefit of losing the game from getting a top pick standpoint down the road? But I understand when you're within the games,
tied
you're
for
trying
first
to win.
place doesn't matter, Mike. Tied for first place doesn't matter, Mike. I'm gonna go BOB on you.
Yeah, they are tied for first place, and I guess looking at the division, like, all right, with all due respect, I think it's clear that Indianapolis is at a different level than Houston is. I think we can agree with it on that.
No, I mean, yeah, there were a lot of self-inflicted wounds that allowed this to be close.
Jacksonville, I didn't watch. I watched maybe like 3 plays in that one, so I don't know exactly what happened. And I would say, like, I guess it's better than last year, but they lost against that seems like that would be a winnable game. Lawrence seemed like he was okay, and then that's obviously a disappointing loss for Tennessee against a Giants team that we're not sure how good they're going to be this season, with Daniel Jones seeming like he's dead man walking. So heading out of week 1, I don't think that the division looks any stronger than I thought heading into the start of the regular season. I would put it that way.
Let's go to some comments. Shelton says it feels like a loss, even though we should have expected a loss. I didn't feel like a loss to me. It felt like they were going to lose as soon as Davis Mills got sacked, and I thought there was no chance they were going to lose. I looked over to Sean and said, "Surely they can't f this up." He said, "Oh yeah, they can." And then minutes later, the blindside strip sack that turned everything around went down, and then it just seemed inevitable that they were going to lose. So I thought they were going to lose, and I feel like they got away with one.
You know how they always say, like, well, the other guys get paid too. If you as a Texans fan feel like you say this feels like a loss, imagine what the Colts fan is feeling. Like, they're probably feeling worse. Like, they're thinking we're finally going to get off the schneid, get a win in week 1. You open with a fairly weak opponent, and in this new Matt Ryan era, they are not able to get a win on the road. I would say the Indianapolis fan feels worse.
Smokey254 says all Texans versus Colts videos I've seen this last week, it was words like massacre, dominated, blowout. So yes, disappointing. We didn't get the win, being up 20-3, but almost everyone was wrong. You might be right about that. Although I picked them to win. I was the only person at the station that picked them to win. So I guess I was half wrong and they were half right. I don't know. However that works.
There's a point to be made. Real quick, there's a point to be made there that, like, they're 7-point dogs. It was one of the bigger point spreads on the board for week number 1.
They were the biggest home underdog.
Yeah, I thought Indianapolis would win the game.
Are you giving them a moral victory? Is that where we're going with this?
No, I'm not going to give them a moral victory. No. If they had done this, let me think about this. If they had done this to Buffalo, I might give you a moral victory.
No, I'm not giving them a moral victory. I just think it was it was perfect poetry for this game.
This is not a moral victory, but, like, when would Landry Locker give a moral victory? Like, when is that situation arise?
I mean, I'm not giving it to Texas for Alabama. So
okay, so it's a pretty high bar.
It's a very rare. It's like moral victories for me are when losing, when losing, the benefit of losing is higher than the benefit of winning, but it doesn't look like a dumpster fire. So, like, if this was like week 16 and let's say the Texans were battling with whoever for the worst record in the league and they looked good, but they ended up losing, that would be a moral victory. But week 1, I can't give a moral victory at that point. I'm not in that mindset yet. Not quite.
And they actually they got a little something for it. Like, they get the tie. It's funny with the NFL, like, without fail, whenever there's a tie in a regular season game, at the end of the year, it always means something.
No, it always does.
It always always means something at the end of the season.
Always does.
Without fail.
Didn't Pittsburgh tie last year? Then that got them into the playoffs. Was that the difference?
I think so.
Am I wrong on that? I don't have the standings.
I believe you are correct. I'll double check it, but I think you're right. I think you're correct.
But I think Pittsburgh. But I think I'm right. Arnaldo Ramirez, and we'll read your comments. Keep them coming.
They were 9-7-1. Indianapolis was 9-8.
And that's what got them in. And that's what got them in. A tie actually kept the Colts out of the playoffs. Arnaldo Ramirez says if Lovie goes for it and Burkhead doesn't convert, Colts make the field goal and win. Everyone says Lovie got out coached. I wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe everyone. I feel like I count, so I don't know if everyone would. Shelton again. said Laramie should have dropped the gas mask before that game. He cost us that one. Maybe if he would have been at involuntary workouts, that wouldn't have happened, and maybe he wouldn't have had a miscommunication. JB says, why are they still giving the ball to Rex Burkhead? Because they can't quit him. JB Shelton, Indy fan, is fuming. The only comfort I take in from this game. Kaysen Puska says the defense looked great. Do you think the defense looked great? No. I don't think they look great, but I will say I do think they played good enough to win.
Yeah, I think they played well enough to win.
Although at the end of the game, they weren't stopping anything. The only way that they were going to stop Indianapolis at the end of that game, I think, to me, like when I judge a defense, I have sympathy for a defense wearing down at the end of the game. Yeah. And when you're trying to tackle Jonathan Taylor and you're just kind of outmanned and you got that big offensive line beating up on you for a long time, I understand that they were just gassed and they weren't going to get the job done. But I think as far as like the defense didn't give Indianapolis a 20-yard field.
No.
So I thought the defense, I don't think they played great, but I thought they looked all right. Jim Stamos. I think you're the only person saying this, and I wish Sean Pendergast were on right now. And I think Mike Meltzer's going to hate this too. Jim Stamos says, why not bring in Driscoll on 2nd and 1? Honestly, I'll be 100% honest. And that's all I be. So I hate when that's all that there is to be.
Yes.
I would rather have the Driscoll Wildcat than Rex Burkhead up the middle on 3rd and 1. Seriously.
Actually, I completely agree with that, because the thing about the Driscoll Wildcat is that, like any Wildcat, it flips the numbers. And say what you will about Jeff Driscoll's quarterbacking ability, the dude is an athlete. You saw that when he was tiptoeing down the sideline. Like, yeah, if you tell me, like, even if you had told me before the play, hey, either Rex Burkhead power or Jeff Driscoll, you flip the numbers and you have the advantage, I'm going with Driscoll because he can make guys miss. He's a bigger guy, so he can theoretically power through maybe for an extra yard, something like that. Yeah, I would absolutely prefer that. I think he's onto something with that point. Yes.
Next comment, Cameron says Burkhead doing what Mac could have been doing. That's an interesting observation. Like that is. I don't think Marlon Mack has a ton left in the tank, but it was interesting how they bring him back to the practice squad and then all of a sudden Marlon Mack's gone. I wonder if Marlon Mack said, look, if you don't think I'm better than Rex Burkhead, I just want to leave. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be sitting here. If you don't think I'm better than Rex Burkhead at this point, then all right, I'll leave. How does Nick hire a head coach who doesn't coach to win games? That's inexcusable. And if Lovie told Nick he coaches to win, then he should be fired today. That's John. That seems a little bit harsh.
I don't think that Nick hired Lovie, but that's another story for another day. I'm curious, and I saw somebody point this out after the game. Nick Caserio is in the headset with the coach in those situations, as you guys discussed a lot.
I don't know if he is anymore or not.
Okay. Well, I'm curious, like, with no judgment either way, I'm curious.
I think he has a background that validates it, but I don't know if he is or not here.
So I'm curious if he was on the headset for that sequence, what he might have been communicating to the coaches or what that communication was like back and forth.
We got Cody Stutes in the chat. I tried to invite him to talk with us, and he turned me down.
Oh, did he?
That was in the chat. Yeah, Cody Stutes turned me down.
I was annoying Cody today with weird questions about our fantasy league.
JD's in here. Shout out to you, JD. JB, how did Green look? Didn't really notice. David has the oranges. Chris Burns says we should have lost. Can't depend on teams to miss game-winning kicks to get W's.
Well,
I'm with you. I thought they deserved a loss.
Somebody that I respect just texted me, and I had this point. I'm curious, like relative to the Pep Hamilton conversation. Landry, did they not build their offense today around Brandon Cooks and Rex Burkhead? Not my opinion, just the numbers. Like you watch the game, we all the same numbers. They built their offense today around Brandon Cooks and Rex Burkhead. That happened.
I'm okay with half of that.
I agree. I'm okay with half.
With half of that.
Yeah.
Stephanie Clay says all I want is for Rex Burkhead to not be on my team. I can completely understand how you feel. Nick says it's obvious Mills will always be a below average QB. He doesn't elevate anyone around him. My question is this: like, who do you want him to elevate? Like, what in the realistic world? Like, who do you want Davis Mills to really elevate? And I'm not saying he played great, but who is there? Do you think he elevated OJ Howard today? Like, do you think OJ Howard looked pretty good today with Davis Mills?
I think so. I mean, it really to me depends on what standard you're using. Like we saw at the end of the 2020 season, when you had a truly elite passing quarterback in Deshaun Watson, like you could throw basically anybody out there as long as they had Brandon Cooks, and they were going to move the ball down the field. But Davis Mills doesn't have that kind of talent. So I saw some of this, and like I'm not gonna lie, I'm in this weird like glass case of emotion where I'm annoyed at like other things online today, not Texans related. So I'm annoyed by other opinions I see. Like
you don't like the hot takes about the Queen or what?
I don't care about the Queen. I'm not gonna lie. The Jets depress me because I feel like I'm in basically a circle of hell just every freaking year. But that's another story. But I see some commentary about like, I can't watch Davis Mills all year, or like I can. Like I feel like I'm in Zen mode here. Like I
can understand you saying that about Rex Burkhead.
Yeah, of course, because Rex.
But I mean, like Davis Mills, I'm still a little bit intrigued.
Yeah, I'm a lot intrigued. I see good things. I see bad things. I am very. If you look at the quarterbacks who started today, I think Davis Mills was like the fourth or fifth youngest quarterback in the NFL. So there is upside there. There are things there. I'm fine with seeing this for 16 more games. Absolutely. And
yeah, I'm 100% okay with that. Yes. What is the let's see if we got some more comments. Chris said should have given Damian more run in the preseason if you were going to put training wheels on him. And then JD says the fire Robert Saleh take by Seth is leading the fire coach thing. Fourth quarter Mills was meh. Yeah, I can't disagree.
Yeah, I mean, the whole offense got spooked in the fourth quarter. No question. Nothing was good.
Yeah, absolutely nothing was good. My next question here, and we always talk about this, Mike. What is the recipe? And I don't know. Like maybe what is the recipe for the Texans to win?
Oh, I think it's a clear recipe, actually.
I think Indianapolis did their part. I think they're going to have to get some breaks at times. Yeah. And Indianapolis did their part, and then they just can't screw up. But I don't think like as far as like we got to run the ball, we got to do like what is the recipe?
I think the recipe is very clear. They have to run the ball substantially better than they did today, and that's going to be much more likely through Pierce as opposed to Burkhead. That's number one. I think they have to hit 1 to 2 big plays like the flea flicker that they were able to hit today. They got to get more guys involved, and you need to have a couple of timely turnovers. They got to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback and get Davis Mills in rhythm for a couple of quarters here. Like I think the recipe for them is pretty clear. It's just it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do that, especially against better competition. Like you're going to have to run the football. You're going to have to get more production out of a fairly weak skill position group. And you're going to have to, like, I can't sit here and say, well, they're going to dominate defensively based on coverage and them decimating the other team's offensive line. That's not realistic with the talent they have. They have to be opportunistic, get some turnovers, run the football better. That's where it begins. I actually think we know what the formula is. It's just not going to be easy to pull off.
I mean, if run the football better is the take, though, that's got to be Dameon Pierce. That can't be Rex Burkhead. And I don't know like who's out there, but I don't know if Dari can run in games, but it won't be hard. I'll put it this way. It won't be hard to find someone that can run the football better than Rex Burkhead at this point. And I'm not saying like as far as like Rex Burkhead not being on the team, I think there's times like if you can get yourself in a situation where Rex Burkhead is by far your third best running back and on third and long or whatever, you're bringing him in, that's fine. But if you can't make Rex Burkhead by far your third best runner of the football, then you either just have a bias towards him where you just love him and there's something deep or some sort of like feelings that you have, or you're just not, you're not assessing talent very smart. Because it's just not going to work. Like Rex Burkhead should never touch the ball 19 times in a season opener when you have Daniel. Like this is the third most touches he's had in the last few years. And last year they cut every running back they had, and they had a bunch of backups. Like you had a whole offseason to address this. You had one of the worst run games in the NFL. Rex Burkhead led an NFL team in rushing for the first time ever, and you had all this time to assess the running back position. You had all these, and here we are in a situation in week 1 where Rex Burkhead's getting 19 touches. That's unacceptable. Like it really, really is unacceptable.
Dare I say it? Has Rex Burkhead turned into the 2022 version
Alfred
of
Blue,
David Johnson? Or is that going too far?
This was very David Johnson-esque today.
A little bit.
This was a very David Johnson-esque performance by Rex today.
Yes. Little bit. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say Alfred Blue just because he wasn't, stylistically the same. But yeah, I think that's.
The more Alfred Blue comparison is more so just like coach's favorite, who they just can't quit, who he's in the mix no matter what. And you don't really even it seemed like there was like a 2 or 3 year period where you just didn't even try to upgrade. You upgraded, but you kept him as the clear cut number 2.
So it's obviously Pep Hamilton's offense. Do we know if the personnel who is on the field is more of a Lovie thing or a Pep thing?
See, I don't know. Like the Rex Burkhead, I just find it hard to believe that Pep Hamilton likes Rex Burkhead as much as Coley did last year. I don't know. Maybe there's something magical about Rex Burkhead, man. Like maybe you just get around Rex Burkhead and you just fall in love with him. Because I like Rex. Look, I say this I have no issue with Rex. Like we got some mutual friends and stuff, and I think he's a good football player. Like I think Rex is a really good football player, and props to him for earning another year in the NFL. Yeah. But like you said it earlier, like his parents, his family, like they know that Rex Burkhead should not be the guy getting 19 touches. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You think about Dan Mullen using Dameon Pierce the way he did last year, and there's always the fear that, okay, we know the kind of talent this guy has, but does the coach, listen, I know Dan Mullen got fired, but like Dan Mullen's been a successful coach in the SEC. He's not an idiot. Does he know something that we don't necessarily know? And that goes to your earlier point about, is he a Marion Barber type?
Well, I mean, you were keeping him fresh. Like Marion Barber closes out games. Like that's what I want from Dameon Pierce. Like,
sure. I feel like 11 is pretty light, especially when you think about those 11 carries.
He only had over 10. He only had over 10 7 times at the University of Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds right. And you think about the game script here. This is the kind of game script that would have favored the Texans giving him the football more. They actually, from that standpoint, they didn't really run the ball actually all that much, considering the fact that they were leading with the football for decent chunks of this game, especially in the second into, all the way deep into the fourth quarter. And you only have 11 carries for Dameon Pierce. Yeah, that's obviously going to be one of the 2 big storylines heading into next weekend.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to one play. Like the one play that you screwed up was either a miscommunication or it was just a complete brain fart by whoever's in charge of the coverage. And even with all this said, they had a chance to win the game. They didn't. They tied. Yeah. We both have no issue with the Lovie Smith thing. Up next, trip to Mile High. Denver Broncos. Mike Meltser has the betting line.
Yes. Let's do next week. What do you guess the line is?
I would guess it's like Denver minus. God. If Indianapolis was a 7-point favorite on the road and they're going to Denver.
To Denver.
I'm going to say 9.
You're close. It's Denver favored by 10.
Okay.
It's the second highest spread on the board. The Rams are favored by 10.5 against the Falcons. So 10-point dogs next week.
See, we haven't even seen Denver yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen them. I mean, my instinct.
What they're going to look like.
Yeah, my instinct is to say
I don't think they're going to be as good as people think.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's going to be a real tall order. Like you're going to Denver, it's always a hard place.
Every football game they play is going to be a tall order.
Yeah, but I think especially this one.
It's not a tall order.
Remember we were in Vegas last year when the Jets went to Denver early in the season and just basically did nothing for 3 quarters? Like I could envision a very similar.
Literally nothing.
Like nothing. Like you couldn't.
Literally nothing.
I don't think
they got off the bus.
Did not cross midfield. Basically, I could envision a similar scenario. I mean, they'll have I know Warren Sharp is big on this. They'll have the rest advantage because Obviously, Denver plays on Monday night, so they're going to be, with only 6 days of
Oh,
rest.
God.
Yeah, so there's that. But it's the first home game for Russ. I think next week particularly is going to be a tough ask. Very tough ask.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough ask, but you never know. I would probably take 10 if I were betting. Texans, by the way, 1-0 against the spread. Something nobody's talking about right there.
Yeah, 1-0
against the spread. I would take the 10.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
Bad teams too. But yeah, I would take the 10. But the biggest takeaway is there's a reliance on Rex Burkhead, and I don't think that really excites people. No. I kind of want to talk about the vibes around NRG because I was there. I got there early. I'm kind of exhausted. I was at a wedding last night in Dallas.
Yeah, you had a long weekend.
Drove back after the wedding and then went up there at 7, and we were judging tailgates and whatnot. The vibes outside of the stadium are better than they've been the last couple of years, which isn't saying much. Like they're not. There's more of a tailgating presence. It seems like people are happier. It seems like people were a little more excited. It just kind of felt like they were starving for a win, and they were starving to support something, but they didn't want to completely buy in. Like there are fans that wanted to buy in, but they were kind of just like, keeping it at arm's length.
Yeah, I think people are going in with tempered expectations. If things go well, then they'll get into it. And I think the team has done the franchise has done a nice job of sort of outreach, kind of changing the message, all these different things Cal has done over the last month. But I think people intellectually, like they realize, hey, there's not that much talent here. This is one of the worst teams by talent in football. So we're not going to buy in more than that at this point, given that the franchise is 21 years old. But yeah. It definitely feels, as someone who was not there, that the vibes are substantially better than the last 2 seasons, especially.
Now, as far as inside the stadium, man, it was, I don't know what the capacity was. I'd take announced attendance with a grain of salt. Sure. Man, there were a lot of empty seats in there. And I mean, look, you would be silly. And I hope the Texans understand this, because I think they've done a really good job of putting in the necessary effort and saying the necessary things and taking the necessary actions to, be more open-minded to change and trying to bring fresh feeling to the stadium. But yeah, a lot of people aren't buying in yet, so there's still a lot of work to do. And it's going to be as simple as winning. And I think winning games like this would go a long way, like the overall cost, if you want to talk about the atmosphere. And they came up short there. But I will take credit for one thing, and I'm 100% taking credit for this. I don't care what anyone says. I promise you, I got the just say the first name in the pregame introductions. I got it washed. It is gone. It is no longer. They do not do that anymore. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Fair. They are in the same position as the Rockets and the Astros are, in that, unlike the first 15 years of the franchise, they need to win to sell tickets. Like they're going to need to win to sell the place out, and to have actual, relatively full capacity. Like that's like, you can do this outreach, which is necessary, and have good communication with your head coach as they've had. But ultimately, getting that place to be where it was 10, 11 years ago, they're going to have to win. Bottom line.
That's it.
Yeah, they have to win.
They got some work to do. And they had a chance to win one today. They didn't win it. They tied. Lovie Smith decided to punt. Meltz, when's the next time you're on the radio, sir?
I am on Mad Dog Sports Radio on Saturday from 10 to 2 Central. So going through week 3 in college football. I honestly haven't even looked at the schedule yet. But put it this way.
Miami versus Texas A&M.
Yeah. Put it this way. Yesterday was supposed to be a lousy slate of games, and it turned out to be really, really good. That's typically how
top 10 teams go down. Number 1 hangs on by 1 point.
Yep, absolutely.
It was a good one. I'll be on Sports Radio 610 from 10 to 2. I'll be on YouTube every single day. So follow the channel, subscribe, do all that type of stuff. It's kind of a work in progress. I know I was originally like, I want to get the production perfect. I want to get the lighting perfect. I want to get all that. But my good buddy, shout out to Jake Asman, who's one of the biggest YouTubers for the Jets, also afternoon host out there. He just said, dude, most important thing you need to worry about is just get some damn content out there and do it every day, and then you can figure out that other crap. So yeah, there's some choppy stuff. We started out with the one screen and went to the other. It's going to happen. We'll probably look back at this, and once it develops, it'll look a lot different, but that's just what it is. So Texans tie next week. They're facing the Broncos. Appreciate you for joining. We'll do this after every game. Meltzy, later, man. Have a good date. Mike Meltzer's going on the town. He's trying to score.
I have a dinner with a friend.
He's trying to score. Later.